This episode is brought to you by Forney Industries, official sponsor of Faction 46 and Nice Motorsports Truck Series teams. Forney offers versatile welding and plasma cutting machines, along with a full line of metalworking accessories for beginners, do-it-yourselfers, and professionals. Forney has everything you need for your next metalworking project. Shop for these top-of-the-line products at forneyInd.com. That's FORNEYIND.com, or at an authorized Forney dealer near you.
Hey there, NASCAR fans. Have you got your copy of the latest edition of NASCAR Pole Position Print Magazine? If not, there's no better time than now to subscribe at polepositionmag.com. NASCAR Pole Position is the only print magazine covering NASCAR. Officially licensed by NASCAR, NASCAR Pole Position Magazine is published throughout the NASCAR season, and each edition is an instant collector's item, packed with great feature stories and photography. The magazine is even mailed to you in a poly bag for those who love to collect NASCAR memorabilia. At polepositionmag.com, you can even find past issues available to purchase. Get your subscription to NASCAR Pole Position and get great NASCAR content delivered straight to your mailbox throughout the season. Learn more at polepositionmag.com. That's polepositionmag.com.
Hey y'all, Rick Houston here, and I want to tell you about my new show, the Moonshine and Motorsports Racing Podcast. I've partnered up with the state of North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources to help uncover the history behind moonshining mountain boys, professional wheelmen, and the backwoods and city lights of the Tar Heel State. In the first episode, I sat down with Winston Kelly at the NASCAR Hall of Fame for a little behind-the-scenes gossip about Junior Johnson's engineering skills.
He's got two things in his hand, pipe wrench and channel lock pliers. And they weren't new. They had been around the block a time or two.
Wasn't the first steel they built, I bet.
No. I think the pliers had been red before, but paint had worn off.
And in the second episode, I talked to a professional hillbilly, a.k.a. Dr. Daniel Pierce of UNC Asheville, to find out the real history of moonshiners and their battles with the revenuers.
He wrote about one of his experience of trying to chase down this bootlegger in this souped-up car, and he complained that the government gave him these piece of crap, cheapo cars, and that were really no match, but he thought he was doing pretty good, and then the guy just hits it and just takes off and practically disappeared. But then the guy makes a bootleg turn and comes back towards him. And as he said, it was a game of chicken, and I was a chicken. And so he ran off the road. And actually, he was the guy who caught Junior Johnson at his daddy's steal when Junior got tangled up in a barbed wire fence.
So check out the Moonshine and Motorsports Racing Podcast, available on YouTube, dailydownforce.com, and all of your favorite podcasting platforms. And be sure to check out my regular show on NASCAR history, the Scene Vault Podcast.
And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome into Next Gen Creators. I am Joshua Lepowski. This is the Daily Downforce podcast, where we talk about and with the next generation of NASCAR content creators. And be sure to head to dailydownforce.com for some great daily NASCAR content, at Daily Downforce on Twitter and Instagram as well for great social media content. Be sure to head to the Daily Downforce on YouTube as well. And speaking of the Daily Downforce on YouTube, that is the subject of today's episode. Our very own John Rizzo is joining us here on Next Gen Creators. John Rizzo, who has been with the Daily Downforce here for a few months now, not quite a year yet, joined the team here last year and started putting out content weekly on the YouTube channel for the Daily Downforce ever since I believe it was last fall is when he started. So it's been really cool to have John as be a part of the team here for the last few months here. He's been really awesome. Someone who has a background in Pokemon, of all things, being kind of his first foray into content creation, but he was a massive NASCAR fan growing up, and also grew up in a family that had some ties to media. So as a result, that kind of inspired him here to become a NASCAR content creator. Today we talk about all of that. Also talk about some of his own thoughts on NASCAR content creators today, how NASCAR supporting content creators, and NASCAR as a sport itself. Without further ado, this is John Rizzo on Next Gen Creators. And now it is time to welcome in John Rizzo, the Daily Downforce's content creator, here to Next Gen Creators. John, you and I have yet to meet in person. We haven't met in person yet, but we have met virtually on a regular basis, pretty much every day for the last, I don't know how long ago it was that you joined the Daily Downforce. It was maybe like 8 or 9 months ago now, not quite a year, but we've gotten to know each other a little bit. Yeah, we are. That's about how long it's been. So when did you join? When did you join, out of curiosity?
So I officially joined the Daily Downforce in, I believe it was June of last year, but I had like a little bit of a weird kind of transition in because I came in, immediately left to go to Japan for a month. So like I didn't actually start uploading to the YouTube channel until September, I think it was. So it's been kind of a process.
Okay, I've been here since May of 2023, so we're creeping up. We're recording this on April 17th, so we're creeping up on like a couple of weeks here until I've been here officially for a full year. So that's kind of cool. So anyways,
we're getting our rookie stripes off the back of the car.
You're right about that. We're getting our rookie stripes off. That's 100% true. But John, thank you so much for joining us here today on Next Gen Creators. So John, you have a really interesting content creation story. I mean, obviously you grew up a NASCAR fan, but you also you're also somebody that has an interest in Pokemon, particularly. That's kind of where your content creation kind of began. So we're going to hit all of that here today in this episode, but we're going to start off here by talking just about you as a NASCAR fan. We'll start off there. So you grew up, to my knowledge, you grew up in North Carolina, NASCAR country, so it makes sense you would be a NASCAR fan. So just kind of tell me, what was it that made you a NASCAR fan there in those early years?
Well, that's right, from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, of course, where the Winston Cup came from. So we got Bowman Gray, Winston Cup Museum, all that cool stuff around here. So very, very easy to get into the sport if you're from this area. But my true origin was my favorite movie as a kid growing up. Gonna sound really cheesy, but it was Pixar's Cars. I absolutely love Pixar's Cars, and that was just my favorite film to rewatch almost every single weekend. And I think after a while, my mom was like, "Hey, you know that this blue car in the movie with the big spoiler, that's a real guy, right? Like that's Richard Petty. He's the king." And I was like, no way that guy actually exists. And so she took me down to the Randleman Museum to go see the big blue car and all the other cool stuff they had there. And as fate would have it, one day he was there and I got to meet Richard Petty, and he was like the coolest guy of all time. And I was just kind of hooked from there. We went to the All-Star race shortly after that in Charlotte. Got to see the Busch brothers wreck each other, which was hilarious to me as a kid. Got to see the nice flames on Jeff Gordon's car, and I was kind of hooked from there. And I was like, all right, I'm a Gordon fan. I'm ready to go. So that was my big introduction to NASCAR right there.
That's a pretty good one. I mean, coming from the king, and obviously you can see in the background there's plenty of Jeff Gordon stuff in the background there. You got a flag, you got a poster, you got a blanket back there on a chair, so you've got plenty of Jeff Gordon stuff there in your thing. So your Jeff Gordon fandom came from watching that flamed paint scheme all those years ago at Charlotte Motor Speedway.
Yeah, to this day, the 2007 version of the Jeff Gordon Flames is like my favorite paint scheme of all time. And then from there, just learning about like all the records that he had set and going toe to toe with Dale Earnhardt in the 90s, I was like, man, this guy is awesome. Like he's done it all. So I was full send Jeff Gordon fan.
Yes, I remember. I grew up a Gordon fan too, so I remember that. I remember that 2007 season particularly quite well. I remember that. I remember I was at. I remember he won. I think it was like 6 races that year, something like that. He was just absolutely killing it that entire season. So I remember that era. Do you have a favorite Gordon win from that particular season? Let me ask that. Since I'm a Gordon fan, and since that's a season that's near and dear to my heart, like, do you have a favorite win from that year?
The first Gordon win that I can remember was the 2007 Talladega race, which I believe was his last win that season. But just the fact that he kind of came out of nowhere, pulled that awesome last lap slingshot, I was like, yeah, he's the GOAT.
Oh, I remember that race. I think if I remember right, I don't think he led until the last lap of that race, if I remember right. I think, but I remember it.
Yeah, I will say that that race proves that advertising on race cars is definitely effective, because ever since that day, I've been Pepsi pilled. I have only drank Pepsi. I've never been a Coke guy, purely because of Jeff Gordon.
That makes sense. Well, then it's kind of ironic that Chase Elliott's become a Coke driver now. Like
his
replacement.
Right?
his replacement's become a Coca-Cola guy. Like it's so
Yeah,
strange.
he's
No, but
he's
like,
been betraying the Hendrick empire. I mean, we gotta get Pepsi back in the sport somehow. We gotta do
yeah.
it.
I mean, Rick Hendrick, or not Rick Hendrick, Jeff Gordon was a loyal Pepsi guy, like all the way till the end. Like he absolutely was. So I remember those days. So, you kind of grew up. You mentioned how you were a Jeff Gordon fan. I also know that when it comes to media itself, your mother, I believe you told me, has been involved in a radio for a really long time. So you kind of had a little bit of media influence in your household when you were growing up as well.
Yeah, my mom was a radio personality. She's been doing that for more than 30 years now, working for various local radio stations around here. And because of that, she has a lot of connections with NASCAR drivers. Like she knew Kevin Harvick very, very well, Austin Dillon, uh, Clint Boyer, all these people just come to the radio station. We get free tickets to races all the time. And so I was kind of inspired by that. I would like, growing up, if I had a day off from school, like I'd get to go to the radio station at 3:30 in the morning and watch my mom and her coworkers kind of do their thing. And it was very interesting to me. And originally I wanted to go into radio after doing YouTube for a little bit. And my mom was like, maybe don't do that because radio is a little bit of a dying industry. Kind of stick with what you're doing with the YouTube stuff. You're doing well with that. So that was kind of how I got a interest in media in general to start.
Yeah, I will say that was most of my training when I was in college was in radio. A lot of it was. So I have a little bit of experience in radio myself, primarily in sports broadcasting. So not like true radio, I guess. I guess more so just broadcasting itself, but still that's really awesome and that's really cool. So you mentioned how you were kind of in that and how you kind of developed becoming a content creator from there. How did you kind of get involved going from radio going into something like YouTube? Because I mean, you're going from two totally different eras of media right there.
Well, the YouTube thing just was kind of like a spur of the moment idea that I had in like sixth grade. I was watching videos on like the new Pokemon game that had just come out, and it was only in Japan. It hadn't even come out overseas yet. So I was trying to get all the info I could. I was watching all these guys playing the Pokemon games, and I thought, this is kind of cool, like playing Pokemon on the internet for like other people to watch and see what's going on. I was like, I could do that. I know a lot about Pokemon. So I just started making videos for fun. And I think after the first year, I had like 1,000 subscribers, and it just kind of kept snowballing from there and evolved into this great big thing now. So I've been doing that for about 14, 15 years now. It's been a very, very long time. So yeah, I've been around for quite a while.
So you said 14, 15 years. So how long ago? So how old were you when you started doing YouTube?
I was 12 years old. So I
Wow.
guess 14. Yeah.
Wow, my goodness. All right. So you've been at it for a long time. So yeah, that would make sense. About 14, 15 years, man. Oh
I
man, that's
technically
really
broke
cool.
YouTube terms of service. Don't tell anybody.
Technically speaking, you did, but you know what? Who cares at this point? So who ultimately cares? So obviously your YouTube journey kind of started out kind of in Pokemon. So tell me, just for some context, like where did that interest come from? Where did that interest sprout?
Well, funnily enough, that was also probably my mom's doing, just kind of trying to keep me busy as a little kid. I had a Game Boy, and she was like, "Yo, I heard all the kids like this Pokemon stuff, so here's Pokemon Ruby on the Game Boy." And I started playing that, and I just was like, I don't know, I get into like one niche interest, and I just kind of like keep with it for like a long, long time, like whether it's NASCAR or Pokemon or whatever. So, I've always loved Pokemon. It's been my favorite video game, and I just kind of decided, this is the way to take it to the next level. Just become a YouTuber and kind of show my knowledge to the world, I suppose.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, that's a really cool thing to have happen. So, kind of like as this kind of developed, like how did your kind of your style and your YouTube, like how did that sort of develop as time went on? Because you did primarily Pokemon stuff throughout most of your early YouTube career, and NASCAR was just kind of an interest that you had on the side, correct?
Yeah, that's definitely right. And at first, I started off just doing like gameplay videos and trying to, just be like moderately funny, I guess, a little bit while playing Pokemon. And then from there, it sort of evolved into like more sort of commentary style videos, sort of like what I do on Daily Downforce right now. It's very similar, just, talking about Pokemon versus NASCAR. And I think that is ultimately what the Daily Downforce people saw and really liked. So, they're like, this is exactly the type of content we would put up on this channel, and we think you're the guy. So it kind of worked out for me in the long run.
So tell me how you got in contact with the Daily Downforce, because it's a really good story. I've heard it before, and I feel like the world needs to hear it now.
Yeah, so my favorite NASCAR content creator, as I'm sure many people's favorite NASCAR content creator, is Eric Estep, and I would watch his videos on a daily basis, just to kind of keep in the know, because like long gone are the days of like checking like a website like JSki every single day. I mean, like, but I see Eric's videos in my feed, and I see like so and so's going to Stewart Haas Racing or whatever. Like I'll click on that, so I'd be watching Eric's videos every day to keep in the loop. And I remember I was sitting at my actual job at work watching one of his videos, and a thing popped up that said like the Daily Downforce is hiring like content creators or like people to like get involved in their media stuff. And I was like, well, that sounds like it's right up my alley. So I sent an email out. I linked my YouTube channel. I don't think I ever had like a formal job interview with the Daily Downforce. It was just kind of like us talking on Zoom for a few weeks and kind of feeling out what the process would be. And we clicked, and here we are a year later, and things are going great.
What was your regular job before you came here?
I was a website manager for like a locally owned wall mural and canvas printing company. So it was pretty cool. It was nice and chill.
That is interesting. Wow, that is interesting.
I went into marketing despite majoring in communications. So, that's just how life works sometimes.
Well, that's awesome. Where did you go to? I know we're bouncing around a little bit here, but like where did you go to school to major in communications?
NC State University, go Pack. We made Final Four.
Okay. That's pretty awesome. I know quite a few. I went to school in Central Virginia, which isn't too far away from that area. So I know quite a few people that are NC State people. One in particular that's a big NC State guy. So that's really awesome. That's really cool. But yeah, so you're in Winston-Salem, so you didn't go to Wake Forest. You went to NC State instead. That's an interesting Tobacco Road decision there that you made there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Wake Forest is the local school, a little harder to get into than NC State, but we did like a tour of NC State like my freshman year of high school, and I just kind of fell in love with the campus. I thought it was a super cool, high-tech facility, and I was like, this is the place where I want to go to college. So that was always the first choice.
Well, that's awesome. And then when did you graduate?
2021.
Okay, well that's cool. So you've been out of school now for about 3 years then at this point. I've graduated from college in 2022. So that means technically, and I'll say this, I'm a Liberty University grad. That means you were technically an NC State student in 2020 when NC State beat Liberty in football and ruined Liberty's perfect season in 2020. I don't know if you
sorry.
I don't know if you remember that or pay attention to that, but I did. I paid attention to it. I was watching that game with my friends. It was heartbreaking for all of us because it ruined our perfect season. But
I hate to hear about that. I wasn't like big into sports like when I was at college, but like oddly enough, after graduating, I've become like more of a diehard NC State fan. Like I used to never watch the basketball or football games. I guess because we weren't very good back then, and now we're kind of good. So maybe that's the reason why. Maybe I'm a fair weather fan.
Well, it's all good. It's all good. So, we kind of went off track there with college. We'll head back now here into sort of content creation. So, you got involved with the Daily Downforce through watching Eric and that sort of stuff. I think I remember you said you got involved. I think you met Craig. You said at I believe it was Darlington was when you met for the first time face to face. Can you tell me what that was like?
Yeah, that was certainly an experience. I mean, I've been talking to Craig, our lead guy here at Daily Downforce, for a few weeks over Zoom, and I just told him, hey, I'm going to Darlington. And he's like, oh, hey, I'm going to Darlington too. So we met up outside the front grandstand in front of like all the old vintage cars, and he got to meet all my friends, and he was like, yeah, if you ever guys want like tickets to the next race or whatever, just let me know and stuff like that. And I mean, it was like super cool, super chill. Like I said, we never had like a formal interview. I mean, he's a super, super personal guy. I love Craig to death. And just from the moment we met him, it was like, all right, this is gonna be awesome. This is gonna be a good relationship.
Awesome. That's cool. So kind of tell me, and I'd love to kind of get into this because I think the process of how you kind of come up with your content's really interesting, just because, I mean, of how collaborative it is and the fact that, people like myself are, sort of involved in like the ideas process of that sort of thing. So, kind of, from your perspective, walk me through kind of like what it's like putting together content specifically for the Daily Downforce YouTube channel. What is that like from your perspective?
Well, it definitely is an interesting process. Like you said, the ideas kind of come together in a multitude of different ways. Sometimes the videos are purely my idea. Sometimes they come from higher up. Sometimes it's us sitting in a Zoom call for an hour every morning, as you know, and just kind of talking NASCAR. And then an idea comes to mind, and it's like, hey, that sounds really good. We can run with that. So, or maybe sometimes it's like repurposing an article that was published by you like a year ago, or be like, oh, this article did really well. What if we turn this into a YouTube video? So it is a very interesting process. I really enjoy kind of getting that creative feedback from other people, though, because for my Pokemon stuff, I've been doing that for so long. I mean, the hardest part of that at this point is just coming up with new ideas. Because I feel like after 14 years, sometimes I'm like, man, am I at the end of my rope? Have I exhausted like everything that like there is to talk about? But having kind of a group to bounce off of and like hear other opinions, and like we did the Daytona video together on the 2007 Daytona 500, and just like that whole process of putting that together, it was really really cool to like get to work with people and be like, here's like the basic outline for a video, see what you can do for this.
Yeah, well, that was a lot of fun. I remember that. I came up with that idea from I was rewatching the 2007 Daytona 500 one time, which is my favorite NASCAR race of all time. And I remember I just pitched it to Josh and said this could be a cool idea, and then you ran with it and he ran with it. You did a really great job with it, so that was really cool. So just tell me, what has been your favorite, I guess you could, I don't want to say favorite, but like the video that you've been the most proud of on the Daily Downforce here to this point.
Oh man, I think the Daytona video definitely is the one that comes to mind. I need to look and see if there's like another one, because like that's kind of like the easy answer is the
Yeah.
Daytona video.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Well, yeah.
I really liked Worst Final Seasons as well. I kind of like diving into the history and like giving like a breakdown of stuff that like not a lot of people really know about. The modern stuff is cool and all, like giving your take on the modern stuff that's going on, but like the history of NASCAR is like the stuff that really interests me, and I think what really interests other people as well. So I enjoy breaking into videos like that.
Yeah, and that Daytona video, again, as you said, is an example of a video where there's a lot of collaboration that kind of goes into it. And I think that's sort of what makes your content, I think, very unique. I think is the fact that, I mean, a lot of these content creators, a lot of them are kind of working by themselves and for them and are working by themselves. So as a result, like they have to come up with a lot of their ideas themselves, and they might bounce ideas off of other creators. They absolutely will. I know Eric's talked about that before. He told me in the first episode of this podcast, he said that, like he's bounced ideas off of other people. Other people have tried out things, and he's given them advice about saying like, well, I'm not sure if this will work. This didn't work for me, so I'll see if it works for you. But it's interesting how it all kind of comes together. I mean, it's all of these our NASCAR conversations we have on those early meetings that kind of come up with some of these ideas where we're able to kind of like learn and put pieces together of certain things, and like we're able to piece together, wait, what, like you say one thing, I say one thing, we piece that together, we realize there's a narrative there and it forms something.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's very interesting to be like, here's an idea, like it's just like a fringe thought almost, and it kind of develops into this larger video idea or article idea or whatever we're going for in those morning meetings.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And it's interesting sometimes how some of those come about. Because like you said, like some of these videos are coming directly from you. Sometimes it's a suggestion from, some of the higher up. Sometimes we'll even have, our social media manager Paige will come in and we'll give ideas, all that sort of stuff. And it's just really cool to see those types of things. I mean, we've even seen that expansion going into shorts that you're putting out kind of every day throughout the week, because you have your long form video that usually comes out late in the week, but you have your shorts that kind of come out sort of during the week. And those are interesting because those shorts are things that you have to come up constantly with new ideas that happen every day for that. So what's your sort of creative process for coming up with those sorts of things?
Oh man, the shorts, the biggest thing is just like finding something that works and being able to repeat it, because shorts is all about kind of like churning stuff out as fast at a pace as you can, basically. So it's sort of like you need to have an idea for like one good topic and find a way to like keep doing that over and over again without it getting like too stale. Like we do like the fun facts videos every week about like the winner of the last race. Just like stuff that people are gonna find interesting, but it has to be like quick and snappy, and like it can't get like too stale,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, we talked about YouTube videos that you're the most proud of. What are the shorts videos that you have the most fun making? Because as you said, a lot of these shorts videos are kind of, they're multiple different perspectives on similar concepts.
I think my biggest one that I really like, and it's actually our most popular short, is the best movie inspired paint schemes. So they're just like kind of like the paint schemes they're inspired by, like like holidays or throwbacks or stuff like that. I really just enjoy breaking down paint schemes in general. I feel like talking about them is always really fun, and like a lot of people will watch those videos not because they're looking for anything like super deep or meaningful, but because it's like, oh, I just like seeing pretty race cars go around. I figure some of those like surface level things that everyone just appreciates is a good paint scheme.
I mean, you're right. It is amazing the types of things everybody loves a good paint scheme. Everybody loves like that. Everybody loves a good race, all those sorts of things. And I mean, it's just interesting to kind of see how these sorts of things come about. I mean, and it's really interesting when you're trying to make this sort of content because like, and of course I've experienced it with the Daily Downforce as well, but like, you're trying to make content that people are going to enjoy and are going to watch, and you're trying to give them content that's good and entertaining as well. So that's a really interesting balance that you kind of have to strike oftentimes. And it means that you have to do a lot of I mean, you have to take some risks and kind of, you have to take some risks, and sometimes things work, sometimes they don't.
Yeah, a lot of YouTube is just trial and error, just figuring out what the masses respond to and what they don't. I mean, sometimes we do like opinion based videos, sometimes we do comedy based videos, sometimes we do like digging into these like fun facts that not a lot of people know about. And sometimes it does well, sometimes it doesn't, but it's always a fun process of figuring out how it works.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. It is a fun process. So, kind of tell me, obviously, as things have evolved, as you've been with the Daily Downforce here for a little while now, as we've evolved the YouTube channel and that sort of stuff, things like that, what are some of the things that you're hoping to kind of see and do more as time goes on?
Well, I would love to do more big projects like that Daytona video. I thought that was like super, super fun to put that all together and very gratifying once it was all finally done. But from there, I would love to like kind of shoot stuff like on location, like get at a racetrack and be like, hey, here are the things to do at Martinsville or Bristol or whatever racetracks are around, or maybe even move to some collabs with guys like Eric or the Iceberg or other people who are in our network. I think stuff like that would be really, really fun to get to.
Well, that would be a lot of fun, and those are definitely. I think that when in terms of being at the racetrack, like I mean, that's always stuff to do around the racetrack, stuff to do at the racetrack, stuff to do, while you're at the race. That's something that I think a lot of people, those are things that people are looking for and that people want. So that would obviously be really awesome and a lot of fun. So,
Yeah, actually, going back to your previous question, I think my favorite short that we've done so far, totally forgot about this one, but it was the North Wilkesboro one, where
oh, I
I actually
remember
got
that.
sent up there to cover the repave. So got access to the infield, got to ask Steve Swift from SMI all the questions about like what made this repave significant. Don't ask Denny Hamlin; he doesn't have any good opinions about it. But getting to go up there and like actually do like some real NASCAR media stuff, like that was really cool.
Yeah, I remember that. That was I remember when that came about because I really wanted to try to cover that because we had, made some connections up there, and I was like, we should try to cover this if we can. And you were Johnny on the spot able to cover that thing, and I appreciated that from day one, and I was happy to see that. So I'm glad you had fun with it because that was really cool content that we were able to put up on the website, which is really awesome. So as we talked a lot about how we kind of come up with ideas and that sort of stuff and how videos happen and that sort of stuff. I mean, are there any NASCAR content creators that you take a lot of inspiration from in terms of how their YouTube videos work, or even content creators outside of NASCAR that you take your inspiration from?
Well, definitely, like I said, Eric was like the first guy who was like, oh, I love how he just kind of breaks down like his opinion, but like it presents it in a way that doesn't feel like like it's a weird hybrid where it's like you feel like you're listening to a fan and a media member at the same time. Like he's not Bob Pockris, but he's not like some I don't know, like Hendrik Schill or something, who's only going to give you like, an opinion from like one viewpoint. Like, I feel like Eric is very objective in how he views a lot of things. There is a lot of his own opinion put in there, but like he always does a good job of kind of breaking it down. So I enjoy how he does that. Real Radma is another one. I just love the NASCAR video games. NASCAR 2005 Chase of the Cup might be my favorite video game literally ever made. So I love just watching his stuff just for fun. Even though we don't do a lot of gaming stuff on this channel, I just find it like super entertaining. Ellie Productions, I feel like he does stuff that's very similar to us. He's one guy who I've started watching very recently, and his stuff is incredibly well done, very well written, very well edited. Makes me a little envious sometimes, but he's doing an awesome job. But I just love like kind of the commentary video essay type style in general. I don't know if you know who like Emp Lemon is. He's my favorite YouTuber, probably maybe ever. But he started off doing like YouTube poops, and I thought that was so funny how he went from that to like full-blown history videos that you could show in a class. He's done a lot of NASCAR stuff too, actually, now that I think
Yes,
about it.
he has.
The Talladega's haunted video, or the NASCAR rivalries videos. Those were great videos. So I love Emp Lemon. I feel like a lot of his interests overlap with my own. So definitely a guy who I take a lot of inspiration from.
So you put Emperor Lemon as your favorite YouTuber just in general?
Yeah, I probably would, because even when he was making the YouTube poops of like, Cars or The Incredibles like 10, 15 years ago, even I thought those were super funny. So I was kind of there for like the whole like lifespan of his channel, and to see him like kind of change his content up and like exponentially pop off in the process has been like very gratifying.
That's cool. And it's interesting to see how long, like I mean, it's tough to realize. I mean, for those of us that kind of grew up with YouTube, I mean, it's crazy to think how long YouTube's been around now and how crazy that it's evolved kind of over time. I mean, from your perspective, as we kind of look at YouTube in general here, because you've been on YouTube for so long, how have you seen YouTube develop over time and expand and do all those sorts of things because of how, I mean, it's a completely different platform than it was when it was founded nearly 20 years ago now, and even from where it's been in the last 10 or so years.
Yeah, that's a great question right there. I mean, I could write a book about everything that I've witnessed on YouTube in the last 15 years. But I mean, you think about how it started off. I mean, the early 2010s, late 2000s, gaming videos were king because watch time was all that mattered. If you put out, an hour-long video every single day of you playing like Slender, do you remember that with like the
I remember Slender. Oh yeah,
the horror game.
I remember
Happy
that.
Wheels, games like that. Like if you just put like an hour-long video every single day, and if people only watched like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes of it, then you were killing it in the algorithm. You were number one. I mean, those videos were super easy to produce. You just sat down and recorded yourself playing a game, commentated for a little bit, and you were done. But the bar has definitely been raised because YouTube has shifted to a retention-based algorithm in the last few years. So it's like you have to be constantly funny and well edited throughout the entire video. So gameplay kind of died. You're seeing the rise of like the commentary channels now in the last few years. So it's interesting to keep up with. Sometimes a little bit stressful, but always interesting for sure.
When you say like retention model, can you explain a bit more about what that means?
Yeah, so basically it's like if you make a 10-minute video, then, they're going to reward you more if people stay around for like 8 or 9 minutes versus like 4 or 5. So it's like it's kind of like a combat against clickbait, I guess, because they used to have like a click-through rate being like the main driver of the algorithm back in the day. Well, it's like you could put, Dale Jr. goes to Joe Gibbs in the thumbnail, right? You could be Dale Jr. in the 18 car in the thumbnail, right? Like huge breaking news, right? And then click the video, find out that it's fake in the first 5 seconds, and then immediately leave. But that video would keep racking up views because so many people have been clicking on it. Well, under today's format now, we have a lot of AI content too, which is also a big problem. So it kind of helps with that. With today's algorithm, basically it's like if people click on a video and it's not what they want in like the first 30 seconds and they click off, and that video is going to be like severely undercut in the algorithm, basically. So if you have an actual good video that people will watch for an extended period of time, then YouTube rewards you for that.
Okay, and so how do you feel like as time's going on, how are you working on developing videos for the Daily Downforce? What goes into making sure that videos keep retention? What are the types of videos that you find does really well with that sort of stuff?
Well, anything that kind of involves a list, I think, keeps a lot of people's, like if it's like a top 5 video, but you don't want to brand it as a top 5 video because top 5 sounds very like 2015 Watch Mojo-esque, and it has kind of like a negative stigma around it now. But if you say Like, for instance, one that we did was like NASCAR's best and worst gimmicks last week. Like, that could be a top 5 video, but like it's still a list just kind of presented in a different way. And I feel like having a video that's broken up into like 1 to 2 minute segments like that keeps people's attention a lot better than just like you ramble about one topic for 10 to 15 minutes. If you're going to do that, like a lot of other people do, then you better have like a really funny script or really intricate editing that's going to keep people's attention the whole time. But like the easiest way is probably just to keep like a list format and keep things like quick, snappy, moving along.
Awesome. And you're also someone that likes to put a lot of comedic elements into your YouTube videos, whether that be SpongeBob humor, like it's or like that sort of stuff. I remember that you implemented that into. I think you made a whole video that was like, I forgot what it was, but like it was
the
video
NASCAR
where
fan
you did
training video.
the fan training video, yeah, where it was based off of the Krusty Krab training from SpongeBob. Like I remember that, which was hilarious. But you try to put like a lot of humor kind of in your YouTube videos. You know, like for you, like where does that sense of humor sort of come from? Both from a personal standpoint, but also from the perspective of like how you feel it helps your videos overall.
Well, I feel like my sense of humor just comes from being a meme fiend and being in a friend group of people who are exchanging Instagram reels like constantly on a daily basis and just like, hey, look at this or this funny sound effect or whatever, you know, just kind of like being fully immersed in like the internet sense of humor like all the time, basically. But I like injecting humor into the videos because I feel like it does help with retention. It helps keep people's attention. It's like you could be rambling about like the history of Jocko Flocko in NASCAR or something like that. It could be totally uninteresting, but you know, put like a little coconut bonking off the head sound effect halfway through. People go, oh, haha, that's funny. I'll keep watching for another 30 seconds, you know? So I do like doing that. I also feel like it makes the video like a little more personable and less like a college lecture. So people are also like a little more incentivized to like keep watching or maybe subscribe after the video if they thought it was funny. So I just found it's like a really effective strategy.
Mm-hmm. Do you have like a favorite trope that you like to include in each of your YouTube videos?
Oh
Like
man,
a
I kind of
favorites?
like doing the you know, you set up a joke and then like the opposite happens, you know, like that sort of thing where it's like, "Oh, and then this race was going absolutely great until it wasn't." Like, I feel like that's something I do like a lot in a lot of these videos, but I was just kind of setting it up like that.
That's easy to do. That's easy to do. I've noticed that particularly with videos. Like, I mean, if you talk about someone like Denny Hamlin, where like his like reputation has changed a lot over time, I've noticed that you like to do a lot of those things. One trope I have noticed in your YouTube videos that to me, you always seem to be very intent that you hate door numbers being slid further
Oh my
away
god.
off the center of the door of the car. I want to
Don't
give you a
remind me.
platform here to explain why you are so intent about door numbers being not in that spot.
Look, when God created race cars in 1948, or whenever it was, he was intent on those door numbers being right in the middle, which is actually blatantly false. Back in the day, like the Hudson Hornet, like it was on the quarter panel. It was horrendous. So that's not even true. But it's just like, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like you grow up with it. You're accustomed to seeing it like in the middle. And like you just kind of, you're adverse to change. It just feels silly. It feels corporate too, because the whole reason is like, oh, we want to give sponsors like more room on the paint schemes. And like we've already talked a lot about paint schemes in this podcast. Like I'm a big sucker for good paint schemes. I feel like a lot of like these paint schemes now, they can't make it work with the door numbers moved up. Like I feel like a lot of them just kind of look the same. I love Larson's HendrickCars.com paint scheme, but it looks awkward and weird with the 5 moved like all halfway up the door. Like they gotta like kind of like scrunch it up a little bit. I don't know. Like it's some of them like Christopher Bell, you got like a whole blank quarter panel. Like, are you really using all that sponsor space? It just irks me on so many levels, like the paint scheme level, like the blank space. I mean, there's so many things that just kind of like rub me the wrong way with the door numbers. Like I'll get over it in 10 years maybe, but for now I'm gonna keep ranting about it.
It's something I've noticed. I've noticed you put it in almost every video that you can, and I just wanted to know, John, why you are so passionate about that. You're not the only one. There are a lot of people that don't like the door numbers being where they are. I mean, they've always been, like you said. I mean, aside from examples like the Hudson Hornet, I mean, they've been in the middle of in the middle of the door for the predominant history of the sport. So we've seen that multiple times. That's pretty common, 100% with all of those. So I mean, as we talked a little bit about kind of like what we want to see from Daily Downforce kind of in the future at some point, some of the stuff you'd like to do if you could do that at some point. What about just like you as a whole, like as a content creator? Like what are kind of like some of your aspirations, goals, types of things you want to try to do in the future?
Well, personally, I am always trying to be funnier. Sometimes people are like, that was a really funny video. And I'm like, really? I didn't think so. But, I always appreciate the compliment. But like, I always just kind of want to push myself to be better, get better at editing, get better at scripting, get better at kind of pacing and structuring videos in general, because you're always going to be your own worst critic. And so I feel like since the bulk of what I do is these essay type content, it's like I want that part of the video specifically to be as good as it possibly can. So whether it's Pokemon or this channel with NASCAR, like I always just want to keep getting better at my craft.
So you still do you still do Pokemon content, correct? And what's your
Yes, that's
channel
right.
for that sort of stuff?
It is just JPR. It is literally just my initials. I was not creative when I was 12 years old at naming stuff. So if you want to look me up on there, I got 235,000 subscribers. We're almost to 250,000. I would really appreciate any subs that I can get. So yeah, that is what I still do on a weekly basis, or I guess bi-weekly now. I kind of tone it down since sort of the NASCAR stuff, but still do it. Still have fun with it.
I can relate to the names problem because my fantasy football name is I suck at names.
Yeah,
It
I'd be the type of dude that's like, I wouldn't even name my kid until they're like 3 years old. It's like, you don't really need one until you know how to talk, right?
My goodness, I like, is that something you can actually do? Like, can you do that?
Maybe in some states, maybe not here in North Carolina,
Maybe.
though.
I know that I think like if you don't name your baby right after they're born, I think they become like baby like last name or whatever. So like
Oh, really?
I think I could be wrong on that. I think my dad had like a student in my dad was a high school teacher for many years, and like I think my dad had like a student that was like baby something or whatever. I think I could be wrong. I think.
I feel like you could get
Well,
away with that in like West Virginia, maybe.
maybe you could. I've driven through West Virginia. Interesting state, by the way. Very mountainous state, by the way. Really, really cool, really awesome. So, I mean, as you're kind of doing this kind of between like NASCAR, Pokemon, that sort of stuff, and those types of things. I mean, for you, I mean, what has the Daily Downforce specifically, like what has becoming a part of this group, like what has that done for you kind of as far as being a content creator in your career, that sort of stuff? Because I mean, it forced you to kind of change your content, the content you were creating from stuff like Pokemon to stuff like NASCAR stuff, which is obviously something you love, but it's just different. So like, how is that, what has that done for you specifically kind of for your life and your career?
Yeah, I think more than anything, it's just really opened me up to a new community of people, giving me a lot of opportunities to, meet people in the NASCAR industry, people like Eric and Steve Swift, and, these people who could potentially be beneficial to me later down the line. I mean, I really appreciate the Daily Downforce for that more than anything, but also just the creative process and the whole feedback loop that I get from people like you and Josh and Craig, where it's like, hey, we want this video to be presented in this style. It's like, can you make that work? And it's like, well, that's a little outside my comfort zone, but I can try my best. I can see what I can cook up. So I really appreciate that, just to be able to attack content from like different ways than I normally would. And like a lot of one thing that Josh preached heavily in the beginning was like, make these videos as personable as possible. And that's something that I've actually kind of adopted into my main channel as well. I used to not show my face very much on my Pokemon channel, but like since doing it on Daily Downforce, I've gotten a little more comfortable with it. And now I do it my Pokemon videos every week. So I feel like I've sort of evolved my content on Pokemon from doing stuff on the NASCAR channel as well. So it's had a lot of influences on me in many different ways.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, that's really cool. So, I mean, as time goes on and that sort of stuff, as you're kind of developing, you're becoming more of a recognizable face kind of amongst content creators, that sort of stuff, more recognizable face kind of within NASCAR. Let's talk a little bit about NASCAR itself here for a little bit, since you always, you have that ability that you can kind of share your opinion a little bit kind of on these YouTube videos. So that's always something you can do, and it's a lot of fun to do. Just kind of tell me, we discussed it a little bit with the door numbers, but tell me, what are kind of some other things that you'd like to see, from NASCAR itself kind of in these coming years?
Oh man, that's a loaded question right there.
Loaded indeed.
Well, my guy Kyle Larson had a wheel come off last week, so I'd like to see 5 lug tires again. That's maybe one thing, but man, I feel like NASCAR's been going in a good direction for the last few years. The next gen car, sure, it has its faults. I mean, short track racing could definitely be a lot better. We could definitely improve the tires and the packages, the horsepower. We just finally got North Wilkesboro back. It would be a shame to see North Wilkesboro come back only to have bad racing for another few years. So I hope they continue to work at that. But the schedule, more than anything, has really, really improved. And I'd like to see them kind of like keep pushing that and like going to new places. So we talked about going to Montreal last year. Obviously, that didn't happen, but like it's still in the works. Going to Iowa for the first time this year. We went to Gateway for the first time a couple of years ago. So I think the schedule now is like infinitely more interesting than it was when I was growing up. So I hope that they keep going in that direction. Just like give us like I even talked about it in the gimmicks video. I wouldn't be adverse to another dirt race. Just don't have it at Bristol. Like I would love to see as much variety on the schedule as possible. So I hope they keep going in that direction.
What about when it comes to specifically supporting content creators? Because, I mean, we've kind of seen in recent years how like, like YouTube content creators, we've seen it kind of in all sports in general. It's become more common, to see these types of content creators be supported by a lot of these entities, a lot of these sports groups, a lot of these leagues. And we've seen, I mean, I know I've seen it kind of in recent years with NASCAR. I mean, you've seen the stuff that Eric's been able to do and that sort of stuff. I mean, what's it been like for you to be able to see how NASCAR's begun supporting these content creators in the ways that they have?
Yeah, it's absolutely awesome, especially coming from my background where Nintendo has been like so against people making content on their games, shutting down anything that has to do with like Pokemon or Super Smash Brothers or any of their major IPs. So to see NASCAR actually embrace their community and be like, here, go on, use this footage. We won't copyright claim you for it unless it's a glitch in the system, which happened a few months ago.
I remember that.
So yeah, that was a big topic of debate right there. But to see NASCAR be like so welcoming of content creators and being like, yeah, we'll give you access to like this stuff at the track, or we'll let you use this amount of footage in your video, like stuff like that. Like the fact that they're very clear cut with their rules and they offer a lot of resources to the creators is wonderful to see. And I hope they keep doing that.
Yeah. And I mean, we're recording this, April 17th, as I said. I mean, Eric Estep's going to be a guest on the Kenny Wallace show here in a few weeks. I mean, Kenny Wallace posted that. Cool. Yeah, Kenny Wallace posted that on Twitter here earlier today, and it's cool to see people like Eric are starting to get that sort of recognition. Just because
and Eric got mentioned on like Denny Hamlin's podcast last week, and when I heard that when I was driving down the road, I was like, "Whoa, that is super cool to hear like an actual NASCAR driver acknowledge a YouTuber." Or when he rub elbows with like Jeff Gluck or Jordan Bianchi or something like that. It's like that's really cool to see like YouTubers be like treated as like actual members of the media almost.
Well, I mean, YouTubers are definitely on that like cutting edge of content creation. They just are. I mean, you're starting to see these YouTubers that are just, I mean, they call it new media for a reason. I mean, this is the way that you're starting to see a lot of younger people like consuming content, like consuming news about things. They're consuming it through mediums like YouTube. They're consuming it through channels like Eric and stuff like that. And that's how they're getting a lot of content. And that's how they're getting a lot of education on like the history of the sport and all that sort of stuff. They're getting it from a lot of these avenues. And that makes it really cool and really awesome to watch and to see. And it's really cool and it's really incredible. So, do you have in your utopian world, John, like what would you love to see, like in terms of like NASCAR supporting these content creators? What are some other like utopian world type stuff that you'd love to see from them in the future?
Man, I think it'd be awesome if they were to give like the creators an actual platform at the track. Sort of like a trackside live type of thing. Like this is like the NASCAR creator corner. You can go there. It's like a designated part of the fan zone.
That's a cool name, by the way. NASCAR creator corner. Cool. That's a cool name.
You could go there. You can meet Eric. You can meet all these guys that have like their podcasts, like even like a Corey LaJoy who does like stacking pennies, that type of thing. Like you could integrate drivers or crew chiefs or just people like Eric or Iceberg or, Black Flags Matter, like any of these people who are like, vital to the NASCAR creator industry online, basically. Like I think something like that would be really, really cool. Just like, especially for the younger fan base, because NASCAR has such it's an older fan base. It's been kind of dying out for a while now. We all know about it. So I think that like the YouTubers, like they don't get enough credit for like how much of a younger new fan base that they have been bringing in.
Yeah, and I just mentioned that about how awesome it is to see them reaching a younger generation, which is something that we all know. That's something that NASCAR obviously, without a doubt, needs with everything. And you're a part of that, being a YouTuber, being a content creator here for the Daily Downforce. You're a huge part of that. Well, John, thank you so much for joining us here on this episode of Next Gen Creators. It was a pleasure having you. And man, I mean, since we work together, obviously, I'll be continuing to see your content, continuing to see you throughout time. So really keep up with the good work.
Yeah, thank you, Joshua. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, John. Once again, that was John Rizzo here on Next Gen Creators. Great interview there with John here on Next Gen Creators. It was a lot of fun to talk to him. A lot of fun to talk to him about his interesting background, his background with his mother being in radio, and also with his love of Pokemon growing up, feeding into his being a content creator, and then ending up in NASCAR thanks to the Daily Downforce. It's been really awesome to have John on this podcast, and it's awesome to have John on around the Daily Downforce as well, and continue to help him and continue to collaborate with him as he puts out some really great content on the Daily Downforce YouTube channel. Be sure to head to thedailydownforce.com for more daily great NASCAR content, and also follow the Daily Downforce at Daily Downforce on Twitter and Instagram. Well, Twitter, formerly Twitter, now X, I should say that, and Instagram as well. Be sure to follow that. Also head to Facebook, the Daily Downforce as well on Facebook. Follow us on all those social media platforms. Get your daily NASCAR content right there, including news, different fan react stories, educational stories, the weekly schedules, all that sort of stuff. Any type of NASCAR content you need, you can find that on the Daily Downforce. So thank you so much for tuning in here to this episode of Next Gen Creators. I'm Joshua Lepowski, signing off for now.